Welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors. Sean with you here as always, and on today's show we are joined, as we always are on Mondays, by Vivek Jacob of Raptors.com to break down a wild weekend of extremes for your Toronto Raptors. They suffered their worst loss of the season on Friday to Detroit, followed it up with their best win of the season in Milwaukee against Giannis and the Bucks. We're going to break it all down with our biggest takeaways. We're going to talk about that Fred Siakam pick and roll, which seems basically unstoppable right now. Plus, we got our dudes of the game, that is. I have to pluralize correctly here. Got those to hand out at the end of the show as well. That's all coming up on today's episode of Locked On Raptors.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1098 of Locked On Raptors for Monday, January the 17th, a very snowy, blustery Monday if you're in Southern Ontario, at least. I'm your host, Sean Woodley of RaptorsHQ.com. You can find me on Twitter as always, at WoodleySean. You can find the show at Locked On Raptors. And of course, you can follow, subscribe to, rate, or review the podcast on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Please go do it, whether it's Google, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, anything in between. Plus, you can always go to YouTube and subscribe for free as well. Just hit that big red button. It's very much appreciated. We're at like 1460 now, I think, in terms of total subs, which is wonderful. So thank you to everyone who has subscribed, and thank you in advance for those who plan to in the future. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Raptors your first listen of the day. All right, let's dig into it. A loaded weekend where the Raptors suffered their worst loss of the year and picked up their best win of the year. And Vivek Jacob from Raptors.com is here to break it all down. It is very Monday over here. Once again, Big V, how's it going, pal?
Not bad, not bad. Staying in, staying safe. Just enjoying the view of the snowfall. And I will not be venturing outside in the near future.
The fear with which you're looking out at what I'm assuming is a window in front of you is pretty palpable. So yeah, I am personally a snow boy. I like the snow. I like to cross country ski a little bit. I like to get out and have a little snow walk or whatever it might be. But this is too much as I look out the window. I can't see the cars in the alley behind me. So that's a problem. That's not good. So I'm not looking forward to shoveling. I'm waiting for my neighbor to potentially take it upon himself upstairs to go and do it. But
the first thing
I think you're not a snow boy.
The first thing I saw when I came over to my desk here was basically I have a view of like there's a like my condo driveway leading out. And it's the back entrance, and there was this car just stuck in, just trying to, reverse back, reverse, and then go forward, reverse back, go forward. Had to do that. Obviously, I just watched the whole time. But eventually,
no good Samaritaning today. Come on, V.
Eventually, they got out there. So they got out of it. That's the important thing. No, I'm not a snowboy. I mean, listen, when you spend, your formative years in Dubai and India, this is not you don't become a snowboy. That's for sure.
Fair enough. On the topic of snow, the Raptors on Friday seemed as though they were maybe stuck in it a little bit against the Detroit Pistons. They got buried 103-87 in a very, very ugly, no good game that we probably don't need to linger on too much. They followed that up, of course, with their win against the Bucks on Saturday, which was just a delight from start to finish, except for the 16-2 start, I suppose, for the Bucks. But everything else was awesome. Vivek, we should start where we usually start on Mondays here. A couple of games to break down, lots to dig into in terms of negative potential takeaways, really positive potential takeaways. For you, what is your biggest takeaway from this weekend of Raptors action where they picked up a very, very bad loss and an incredible victory?
Biggest takeaway is, when the defense is clicking, it's really clicking, and the fact that it can get to the level it showed against Phoenix, the level it showed against the Bucks in that second half, I think is really encouraging. I think the team has a lot of confidence right now, and like you can see it, and they've said it a few times as well. Like, when they're playing their best basketball, they feel like they can look eye to eye with anyone, and at the very least compete, right?
Mm-hmm.
The chips will fall where they may with the results, but those were two very competitive games against last season's NBA finalists. And
Yeah.
when you have, I asked Precious this, like, and he said, yeah, there's just a different swagger to the team when Pascal's playing like this. So,
Right.
yeah, I think it's pretty encouraging overall. The Detroit thing, like, there's some weird voodoo stuff going on there.
Yeah,
Some
fake
karma
games don't
stuff
count. Yeah,
from,
it's
yeah,
all under the guise of voodoo and magic that we can't possibly understand. So I'm
yeah,
not going to even try to dive into it. Really bad game. There's no two ways about it. But yeah, that Bucks game for me. I mean, look, there's still like 4 weeks until the trade deadline or so. I guess just under 4 weeks. I do think this past week, with the game against the Suns, with the 6-game winning streak that preceded it, and then the game against the Bucks to kind of cap off this stretch of play with no Gary Trent Jr., with no Scotty Barnes, just confirms to me that like this team is good enough that I would be very, very disappointed, I think, if the front office didn't take steps to address its biggest weaknesses, which is, of course, secondary scoring and punch off the bench. And I feel like that's a low stakes enough thing to address via trade where you're probably not going to have to spend too much in terms of future capital or like premium future picks or anything like that. I think it's reasonable enough to say that if they right now don't try to add around this Siakam, Fred, and OG trio, which is clearly doing something pretty special, I think it's probably a bit of a missed opportunity. Is that too strong a take about the plan at the deadline here, Big V? Like, or are you also on the same side where it's like, why not? Like, yes, you're ahead of schedule. Yes, you don't want to empty the coffers too much going into the future here, but like, you have a chance to be a pretty good team right now and maybe make it to the 4, 5, 6 seed or something like that if things go well. I think it's worth potentially giving up a little bit of the future to complement today, especially if you can get a guy who's going to be around beyond just this season. What say you?
well, I don't know if they're necessarily, going to creep into that conversation for the 4 seed or the 5 seed.
Maybe not. That's maybe too rich, but
And so when I look at the 6 seed potential, is the adding that scoring punch off the bench going to change a series against the Nets or the Bucks or the Heat? Probably not. I'm watching snow literally drop off the top of the Rogers Center right now. And you know, Chicago is obviously going to be a very tough team to beat. So I don't know if the playoff ceiling changes with that move. So it would have to be a very specific type of upgrade because again, you have to stay under that luxury tax.
Yep.
I think that would be above all else in terms of the Raptors' priorities because of the windfall that would be coming from it for the teams that stay under the luxury tax. So if there's, a nice, swap where everything is kept in line, then sure, you either address that or you get, a 7-footer that you have as an option that you can use in a series. But yeah, I'm not, I'm not yet fully sold on the Raptors absolutely have to help this team right now.
That's fair. And like, I don't think there's a right or wrong sort of way to go about it. I would counter with like, I don't think a move is necessarily just about like making a push for this season, right? Like, I don't think you're going to get a rental necessarily, but that's why two guys I talked about on last week's shows, like when we did the Tuesday sort of primer for trade season, like Terrence Ross, Eric Gordon will be around next year. And I think those guys are important, not just to help them push and sort of fill in the holes on what this team is right now, but also just ensure that there's like a good environment for development for the entire team going forward. Because right now, as amazingly as Pascal Siakam is playing, and we'll get to Pascal and Fred VanVleet in a sec because they have been incredible. Like, as awesome as he's been, like, there's a lot with this roster that makes it difficult for the best version of guys to be seen. In particular, I'm thinking Scotty Barnes, right? Where like he's playing with these second units. He hasn't played the last couple of games, but like he's playing with these second units and he's passing to nobody. He's passing to guys who are not knocking anything down. If you can get someone in who can help you push through this season and give enough support to the three guys who have been incredible basically every single night all season long, where night in, night out, you look at the box score and it's like, oh, those three guys really good. Everyone else, like, you can get someone who's not, that would be awesome. And in addition, you kind of look at next year and help that team kind of take shape a little bit more too. I'm pretty bullish on they should go and do something. What that is, I don't know. I'm not a salary cap manager. We've gone through a couple of possible iterations of deals here on the podcast. We'll continue to do so as we go forward here, but it's a fascinating conundrum for the Raptors because I don't think they expected to find themselves in this position where they're ahead of schedule. Scotty Barnes is far ahead of where he thought it was going to be, and they are beating and competing with really good teams. But I think it's worth potentially betting a little bit on this group and saying, you know what, like, let's go see what we can do in the playoffs. And if not, we have a roster that's a little bit more sort of in shape for next season, and we can kind of go forward with that. But any last thoughts on that before we carry on here?
I guess my last thought was like my thought process is coming from, what does Chris Boucher net you? What does, that Chris Boucher plus Dragic, maybe Malachi Flynn is involved. What does that net you? If it gets you a capable shooter, then I think that's interesting. I'm not sure that's quite the case. And then you start moving into the Gary Trent Jr. conversation. And then it's like, are you giving up, one of the few volume guys you have, to address something else? So that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know, if Boucher is enough to secure it. But I mean, hey, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. If someone sees Chris Boucher and says that's a piece that we want, then that would be great.
Let me tell you, the John Collins noise out of Atlanta, I'm not listening to it. The vision. Look, let me tell you, we're running long, but Gary Trent Jr., I love you, my dear friend. You're the best. But go cook with Trae Young at the backcourt. Bring John Collins here. Roll out a Fred, John Collins, Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam starting five. Baby, the vision is complete. That's for another day. We'll continue on here, Big V, and talk about Pascal and Fred. Siakam with a 30-point triple-double on Saturday. Fred VanVleet doing Fred VanVleet things. We're going to dig into those two guys. And in particular, how the hell would you try to stop the Siakam-Fred pick and roll, which has basically been an automatic bucket for the Raptors lately? We'll get to that in just a second here. But first, want to tell you about our friends over at Shopify. Cha-ching, you hear that sound? That is the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. And, of course, Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses, so startups, upstarts, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility. Shopify is here to help you get there. With Shopify, you can reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. You can gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting on conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. It's more than a store. Shopify grows with you. This is possibility powered by Shopify. Go to shopify.com/lockedonnba, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Go grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/lockedonnba, shopify.com/lockedonnba. And we continue on here with your first listen of the day, digging into the Raptors' 1-1 weekend against the Pistons and the Bucks once again. And we got to talk about Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet. Pascal was dynamite all weekend long, even in the game against the Pistons on Friday. We'll get into his performance on that in the final segment, but he was really, really good in that one. Basically the only vehicle by which the Raptors found anything in the half court, which was pretty fun to watch when he had the ball, not so much when anyone else was doing anything with it. And then on Saturday, he goes for 30, 10, and 10. Probably the best game he's played all told in his career. Maybe you could quibble with the 6 turnovers, but he was just unbelievable. What was your sort of reaction to watching that performance unfold, especially in the fourth quarter as he's kind of knocking everything in sight down? Just an absolute delight to watch Pascal on Saturday, no?
Yeah, just the confidence right now is sky high.
Mhm.
I think, you know, every situation that's in front of him, whether it's a one-on-one matchup, posting up, or isolated on the perimeter facing up, um, even those kick out threes, you can see the way he's shooting it. Like he's playing like, you know, let's go.
Mhm.
We can win every game because I am gonna ball out and give us a chance. Like
Mhm.
that's literally the way he's playing, and so I love where he's at. Again, every time he speaks to the media, you can just see that clarity, that peace uh, he has in between the ears now, and I think it's great. Like we've been waiting for this for a little while now, and again, you talk about how this team's sort of hierarchy rolls.
Mhm.
When Pascal is like this, it is crystal clear. You know, this is this is the best player on the team. He is the one that, creates the double teams and creates the mismatches, and then everyone can function off of that. So, yeah, hopefully he can just keep it rolling all season.
Yeah, he's been like just so far beyond I think even his 2019-20 All NBA season. Like the playmaking is just 3, 4, 5 levels up from what it was that season where he really wasn't asked to do that much in terms of playmaking. The assists are only up like 1.5 or whatever, but like just the vision and the way that he's keeping the offense looking reasonable when he has the ball in his hands. Like I said, whenever he's not using his sort of dynamism to create something for the Raptors in the half court, things get dicey. You get over dribbling from OG Anunoby. You get, Fred VanVleet seeing traps and then finding Pascal Siakam. Like it's been just an absolute treat to watch. And it's really kind of fueled a really like strange and I think unexpected late game surge from the Raptors in a lot of these games. They have been this season in 63 crunch time minutes, the number 4 offense in crunch time per NBA.com, 122.9 points per 100 possessions. That's behind only the Suns, Clippers, and Bulls in crunch time. This is kind of what we saw back in 2019-20 when Siakam was doing his thing, winning second team All NBA, and Kyle Lowry was on the other end of like those screening actions, whether it was Siakam screening for Lowry or Lowry screening for Siakam. We're basically seeing the exact same thing kind of come together here with Fred VanVleet and Siakam, and they're running a ton of pick and roll late in games. It's become their pet play, and it's working really well because Pascal Siakam can score on the short roll. He can get to the basket. He can pick and pop. He can also handle it and create on the other end of that and, find Fred VanVleet for pick and pops. When, the Bucks were sending 2 Siakam and Fred's way, the other guy was finding the other guy very easily on Saturday, and it led to a lot of really good things. So I gotta ask you, like this Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam pick and roll, it's looking beautiful. It's like the foundation of their offense when things matter the most. And it looks pretty damn hard to guard right now, Vivek. Like, what if you were an opposing coach? What's your sort of approach to stopping these guys? Because you can't really send 2 to Siakam because he's going to find Fred and Fred's going to knock down a 3 from the top of the arc. You can't really send 2 to Fred because he's been just fine getting the ball to Siakam on the short roll. And then you have a 4-on-3 with Pascal Siakam picking you apart. That doesn't seem ideal. Siakam's getting by guys one-on-one. Fred's getting by guys one-on-one. Like, how do you guard the Siakam-Fred pick and roll if you're on the other side and you're game planning for it? Do you just kind of hope and pray, or is there something you think teams could start doing to slow that pet play down?
Um, so I went back and I was watching some of these clips involving Fred and Pascal,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously there was a high level of execution from the Raptors, but um, especially when Giannis was involved as the big, I thought they were okay with their coverages. Or at least, I think that's about as good a job as you can do, and then let it play out from there. Um, when Fred's got the ball in his hands, I think uh, you got to show hard and recover quickly. There were times maybe they didn't recover as quickly as they should have, and then that's where they get punished. And I think with Pascal too, because of how he's reading it. I mean, the tough part with the Bucks scenario is Giannis, obviously, right? When you're looking at it from Pascal and Fred's perspective. And so I think with him, they have a lot of options. What happens when you're going up against a traditional big? If you're not pre-switching, then you're in trouble, and you're in real trouble. So I think you have to pre-switch. I think you have to get someone mobile out there on the perimeter. If you don't have like a really athletic big that can move quickly. So I think show and recover quick is probably the best way that I would go at it. And yeah, the other options, Giannis is going to be able to handle a switch from more often than not, but not a lot of teams. 29 other teams don't have Giannis, so that's where the problems sort of begin.
Yeah, it's not an easy conundrum to figure out right now with the way these guys are playing. And obviously, like, if Pascal's shooting, doesn't continue at the trend it's been on recently, then it becomes a little bit easier to sort of, all right, we're just going to go under and dare him to pull up or whatever. But he's been really good at kind of getting to his spot at like 18 feet and pulling up from there. It's all like he's just got answers for everything right now. I can't remember who made the point, but someone made the point. It might have been our friend Brad from Too Much Hoops. And apologies if I'm misaccrediting this, but it's basically, you could guard Fred and Siakam is if you had a bunch of 6'9" wings and you could just like switch them across the board. As that happens, the Raptors have collected all of those, and so it's tricky to find the personnel to be able, the Raptors. If you were like to have Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby switch on Fred and Pascal, that might just work, but it's tricky when the personnel for other teams doesn't quite match up. And it's a nightmare matchup for other teams right now. And obviously, the Raptors have their problems in the half court and, over the course of a full game, they're really struggling, but it's nice to know that they can get down to it in late game situations and find looks through those two guys. And this is coming recently without the guys who are sort of there to, space the floor out and make the geometry make more sense. They're doing it right now with like three bigs just kind of floating around doing nothing. And I'm excited to see what happens when like Gary Trent Jr. gets back, as they've continued to sort of work on this connection, this chemistry between Fred and Siakam, which is of course years old at this point. Like having the proper spacing and floor balance around those two, I think is only going to stand to make that an even better connection. And again, another reason. Imagine Terrence Ross getting catch and shoots from Pascal Siakam in the short roll and pick and rolls with Fred VanVleet. Baby, I'm excited. Anyway, okay, that's my one Terrence Ross mention for the day. I'll be back again tomorrow. I'll be here all week. We'll continue on here and round the show with a couple of dudes of the game. We're going to talk a lot about how the Raptors guarded Giannis through the dude of the game on Saturday's game. And then we'll also talk about Pascal Siakam again, because as it turns out, he was very important to what the Raptors did over the course of the weekend. That's coming up in just a sec. But first, let me tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, who are making the best tasting protein bars money can buy. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. And if you are trying to get back on the wagon and be a healthy eater this month, Built Bars are the way to do it, because they taste very indulgent. They feel like a candy bar, but they are not a candy bar at all. They contain lots of good stuff and not a lot of the bad stuff. Just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein in your average bar. Compare that with a candy bar, which usually has around twice the calories. And what is the math on this one? 7 or 8 times the sugar, 30 grams of sugar. That's ridiculous. Dozens of net carbs. You don't need that. You want a Built Bar. It's going to help you replenish. It's going to help you, fuel up for workouts, everything in between. Go and check out Built Bar today. They have tons of great flavors available. They pop up with limited time flavors all the time. And also they have their staples like mint brownie and cherry barcia and peanut butter brownie and all those delicious ones that I've talked about for years now on the podcast. Go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That is the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. And I'll tell you, if you can find the caramel almond on the website, buy it today and send them to me, because I'm running out and they're the very, very best and I want them back. Bring them back full time, please, Built Bar. Go to Built.com, promo code LOCKED15. And today's show is brought to you by our pals over at betonline.ag, who would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue the march towards the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. That's a new year, and you've got a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up at today and receive a 50% welcome bonus upon your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, to get started. It means you put in $100, use that promo code, an extra $50 just magically appears in your account. That is a wonderful deal. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait and take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. You can even vote on things like, or bet on things like European basketball and handball and stuff like that. If you really feel like testing your luck, BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, we have reached the dude of the game, which is a lovely segment we do here on the podcast. If you are unfamiliar with the dude of the game, if you're a new listener to the podcast, this is a segment where we give a shout out to someone who was very important to the Raptors in either a winning or losing effort, who maybe wasn't the star of the show, but was very important and did dude-like things nonetheless. As it happens, sometimes the dude is going to be a star because there's just no one else to pick. And so I'm picking for Friday's game against the Pistons, an ugly, terrible game that no one should ever remember. The dude of the game is Pascal Siakam, who had 23 points, 11 boards, 4 assists, and really was the only guy that got anything going. Vivek, is this a rightful dude of the game for that very, very terrible Pistons game that will never be talked about beyond this segment?
Yeah, I mean, unless you want to give it to Dwayne Casey, those would be the two options. I mean, yeah, I think Pascal kind of, there wasn't really anything happening in the half court without him. I think that's a fair enough shout. He's obviously on a roll. The tank was empty for most guys. Like, for Fred teased a little bit. When they made that run to cut it down to, what was it, 12 or 13. Mm-hmm. And then it just ballooned back up to 20. And I was like, all right.
Yeah. So, yeah, not the best. I got to ask you, it's maybe just like a normie question at this point, but it's been a conversation. And I think it's going to continue to be one for the next couple of weeks here until the All-Star teams are decided. Pascal is unquestionably playing all-star level basketball right now. I don't think there's any debate about that. He's playing arguably all NBA level basketball right now. He missed the 10 games at the start of the season. He missed the 2 games for COVID. He hasn't played quite as many games as anybody else. I feel like that probably shouldn't matter as much this season because who cares? It's the fake season. Everyone's missed a ton of time because of everything. But do you think Pascal Siakam has a case for the All-Star game? And in particular, with Kevin Durant going down with injury, does that open up a forward spot potentially for Pascal to slide in there? Because I don't know if I could name that many guys playing better basketball than Siakam in the front court in an Eastern Conference team this season.
Yeah, as much as I love the way Pascal is playing, I just don't see it. I think when you look at the teams that will be getting 2 All-Stars, it's Chicago, it's Brooklyn. Obviously KD will be removed, depending on where his injury's at. I wouldn't totally rule it out because what we're looking at, Feb 18th, probably out. Feb 20th, I think. But anyway, I think, Milwaukee will probably get Giannis and Drew Holiday. So I think it would be very, very hard to see the Raptors getting 2 All-Stars. That's basically the argument that rules out Siakam. So obviously it has nothing to do with the way he's playing. I just find it very, very difficult to validate 2 All-Stars for the Raptors, as I would find, if you want to be, really objective about it. Do you think Charlotte deserves 2 All-Stars? No. Do you think Boston deserves 2 All-Stars? No. Do you think, Washington deserves 2 All-Stars? No. So why would Toronto, right? If anything, I see, the door opening for someone like Garland, just because, if Adam Silver has to name an injury replacement and the game's in Cleveland, you've got Jared Allen there. You probably throw Darius Garland in there.
Yeah, and I would imagine it's pretty guard heavy this year. Like LaMelo Ball might be kind of on the fringe. Maybe he gets in if Durant's not there. It makes sense. Let me ask you this: if Pascal had been playing this way from the very beginning of the season, with no 10 games off the start of the year, none of that sort of 4 or 5 game lead-in time where he was still kind of testing the waters, Who's the all-star? Pascal Siakam or Fred VanVleet?
Yeah, it's Pascal Siakam. I
Yeah.
think again, when Pascal is going like this, it's very clear to me who the best player on the team is. It's very clear to me who sort of changes the ceiling, right? Like I would say, Pascal can have a night like he had against the Bucks, and Fred can be pretty good, and you're beating the Bucks.
Yeah.
I don't think it can be the other way around, right?
Yeah.
So, or I don't think they can beat the Bucks with it being the other way around. So, so I think that's where Pascal, I think, has that respect. And then, as you said, it still comes down to the competition. And so if Pascal was playing like this right from the very beginning, you look at the front court options for the East. That's where it's easier to make the case for Pascal than it is for Fred because of how stacked the guards are.
Yeah. Either way, it's one of them good problems. Oh no, we have
Yeah.
too many guys who are deserving of all-star consideration. What are we ever going to do? We're gonna get to the dude of the game. Yeah.
One very quick thing is, I hope when the coaches vote that they do keep in mind that even though DeRozan is voted in as a guard, he is a forward.
Yeah.
And realize that, okay, there's room for the extra guard because that forward is in the starting lineup,
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. There's plenty of time to ruminate over All-Star in the coming weeks. I just thought that was an interesting good question for you. A little parlor game. Let's round it out with the dude of the game for the game against the Milwaukee Bucks. Of course, a wonderful, wonderful victory. You could give it to Pascal Siakam for this one, probably. I mean, the dude was ridiculous. The dude carried the team in the fourth quarter. He was just like all-encompassing. The pass he hit Justin Champagnie with for that big three that Champagnie hit was just like, mwah, beautiful. This is the fully realized version of Pascal Siakam, and it's delightful and beautiful and wonderful. But it's not going to be Pascal because he was just too damn all-encompassing to be a dude in this game. Let's go with, however, Precious Achiuwa for dude of the game against the Bucks. 14 points, 10 rebounds. He played incredible nonstop 39 consecutive minutes of defense, essentially, against Giannis Antetokounmpo. He was outstanding. Overall thoughts on Precious Achiuwa's performance on Saturday to earn him dude of the game?
Yeah, it's just a very important factor in the win. Obviously there's going to be those frustrating plays on offense. That's kind of part of the package and the Precious experience. We saw those first couple minutes where it was a whole lot of Precious. And it was like, oh boy.
The offense can be troublesome. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But then, you look at him taking on the challenge of defending Giannis, and I think there's nothing more you can ask for from a big, right? Like his ability to stay in front of not only guys like Giannis, but even when, we see it plenty of times where he's switched on to guards on the perimeter and he's able to stay in front. Like that is a huge part of the Raptors defense being successful for whatever amount of minutes he gets. And I think his ability to do that is very unique at his size. And then obviously, he gives you the rebounds, it gives you the hustle. Hopefully he's struck that comfort zone in terms of what he offers the team defensively. And then offensively, I think it's just going to be a slow and steady process of like weaning out the bad stuff. And I mean, it's encouraging that some of the offensive stuff is just like, hey, just do less, right? Like when you get the offensive board, just like kick it out and let the guys who usually handle it.
Yeah, they must have instituted, or they must at some point institute some sort of jar into which he pays if he makes a silly decision upon an offensive rebound. Maybe Justin Champagnie has to be thrown into that as well. Although Champagnie's not so much bad decisions as it is just he keep getting the ball knocked out of his hands on those offensive rebounds. But either way, he's very deserving. Really glad to see Precious kind of coming back around into form here. And really, it doesn't take much for his offense to be good enough to justify having him on the floor for his defense because he's so damn good at that end. Like he can shoot you out of a game for sure. He can get really silly with it and become a big problem. But when he's not doing that and he's playing with himself and he's getting the luck of an odd bank in and stuff like that once in a while, he becomes a pretty valuable piece to have it on the floor. And the defense is bloody tantalizing. Like let's sort of take this to a bigger picture thing, right? The Raptors right now are the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. There's a world in which the Raptors take on the Bucks in a first round series, whether it's they win the play-in and it's a 2-7, whether it's a 1-8, whatever it might be. It could be a 3-6, I suppose, in some cases. Do you think the Raptors pose a particularly difficult test for this Bucks team? Obviously, they're the defending champions. They would be heavy favorites in any series against the Raptors, but the Raptors have always defended Giannis pretty well. OG has always been a pretty good piece to throw at him. Siakam, obviously, is an extra body. And now they have Scotty Barnes, and they have Precious Achiuwa, and they have Khem Birch, who I think can kind of do a lesser version of the Gasol, just wait at the rim for him type of thing. Like, do you think the Raptors would be like a team that the Bucks are like, you know what? Not for us. It's been 5 straight wins over Milwaukee, dating back to that stretch last season where they won back-to-back against them, and it looked like the Raptors were going to be the 4 seed, and then COVID hit and ruined the season. That was kind of the last high point. But as far as how this Raptors-Bucks matchup looks, are the Raptors a team the Bucks do you think would be terrified of because of the options, or is it we're the Bucks, we can beat anybody, it doesn't really matter to us? This might just be like a slightly bigger speed bump to get over.
Yeah, so I lean towards the latter. It's a bigger speed bump compared to the other teams in that lower echelon of the Eastern Conference. And I actually think they might view it as ideal prep for a Brooklyn Nets series in terms of what they might see defensively, where, you know, Brooklyn is going to try and switch everything, and they're going to have you know, smaller guys playing the 5. They might have KD playing the 5 more often than not. And so I think it would be good prep for what they might see in that series defensively. So I think they'll take it on and say, yeah, okay, this is kind of what we need to get set for something like that. Obviously, you know, Miami with Bam, Chicago with Vucevic, those would be very different challenges. But I think they would look at Brooklyn and say, okay, this is kind of a nice prep. I don't think the Raptors would have a chance going up against a healthy Bucks team with Drew Holiday in the mix as well. Because Giannis, I mean, it's crazy. Like, he just keeps getting better. Like, you look at his passing now as well. Like, that's gone up another notch. And
as our pal Joe Wolfond noted, when Giannis was going like 13 of 13 from the line on Saturday, this is some Happy's learned how to putt shit.
Yeah, and yeah, he's literally Superman right now. And you know, come the playoffs again, he's gonna have that swagger, that confidence that he gained from winning those finals. And yeah, the Bucks, look, when it comes down to it in the playoffs, like, you are going to have to take it from Milwaukee. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that is going to be a really, really tough team to beat.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, I would like to see the Raptors play either the Heat or the Bulls in the playoffs just for, like, the juicy narrative num-nums. But also, and, like, I know that they probably have a better chance of beating those teams in surprising it into the second round. But something really, like, tickles my fancy about the idea of the Raptors just really annoying the Bucks for 6 games. Like, that seems fun to me. I don't know. We can revisit that as we get closer and the playoff matchups become a little bit less sort of like a total guessing game. But I think that's a pretty good place to leave this one off. We've covered lots of ground. Very exciting times. The Raptors are pretty good, and they have a pretty challenging rest of the week to go. They take on the Heat tonight. No Kyle Lowry, very sadly. That's a big bummer for the Heat tonight, but they'll play Miami nonetheless, and they get the Mavericks on Wednesday, the Wizards on Friday. There's a whole lot to dig into. Vivek Jacob, thanks for being here, man. Do you have anything you'd like to promote?
Usual stuff, Raptors.com, CBC Sports. Just did a long-form feature that's out on Paul Poirier and Piper Gilles, who will be competing in ice dancing at the Winter Olympics.
Hell yeah.
Piper Gilles is also from Rockford, and then moved over to Canada and represents Canada now. And so next time I see Fred, I'm gonna have to, you know, have that question his way.
Yeah.
You know,
The
how long
deep
before?
figure skating talk. What are his thoughts on
Oh,
God, I couldn't
just,
name another one. Keegan Messing.
rep, I just mean in terms of repping Canada.
Oh
So
yeah.
hey,
Oh
there's
right.
there's someone here that was born in
There's an
Rockford, but now
established
represents
pipeline.
Canada.
Yeah, yeah. It's not bad. I mean, Fred Jr. will be able to compete for Canada, right? That's the whole like the racket of having a sports team in Toronto. The goal is that 25 years after you've launched it, you have a bunch of guys who have had kids in town, and then
Mm,
they're all citizens. This is the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. thing, of course,
yeah,
who is Canadian, even though he's not Canadian at all, like never lived here or anything like that. Just happened to
yeah.
be born here, and thus has that passport, baby. Anyway, everyone go check out Big V's Olympic stuff. We love Olympic V over here. That's all coming up very soon. It's quite exciting. You can find me, of course, at Woodley Sean. You can subscribe to or follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts and all the different apps. You can subscribe on YouTube. It's very appreciated as well. And you're going to be back tomorrow, Big V, Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday you'll be back as we're going to do a half-season check-in on our over-under predictions from before the season with Vivek and Sahal Abdi. That'll be your Wednesday podcast. Tomorrow we're going to break down Raptors Heat, of course. Thursday, we're going to break down Raptors Mavericks. And then at the end of the week, to close it all out, Samson Folk is going to join me, and he's going to talk about his wonderful piece on Scotty Barnes, which is getting lots of love across the internet over the last few days, as it should, because Samson rocks and really, really, really tries to be good at his job, which is something that is very commendable and awesome. So we will talk to Samson about Scotty on Friday. Until then, though, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Enjoy Raptors Heat. Bye-bye.